Yo, 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 yo. Kill the box score here. My man Malachi, what's going on?
What's up, bro? I'm glad to be here, ready to talk a little bit of college football playoff predictions with you.
Yeah, we're on the eve of the season. Matter of fact, I don't know if they're playing right now. I'm not sure what the time difference is in Dublin, but that FSU Georgia Tech game's kicking off very shortly, if it hasn't already. Um, it's going to be an interesting season. It's our uh, inaugural expanded playoff season in college football. We got 12 teams, and let me just say real quick, I'm not, man, I'm not that excited about it. I was just when I was going over the simulations and how things can play out. I mean, you could see repeat matchups three times, let alone two times. I mean, because of the playoff, and it's just like we talked about last time. The greatest regular season in all of sports. You don't really get rematches. You know what I'm saying? It's pretty rare. Um, but yeah, I guarantee we get at least one in that playoff this year. What do you think?
I 100% agree. I do think that in the playoffs that we will see one or possibly more um, rematches from the regular season, which, as you stated, is quite rare. I think that um, throughout history, we've only seen a handful of rematches in the postseason. If we go back to the LSU Alabama, there was a Oklahoma versus Nebraska, in which Nebraska had actually beaten Oklahoma in the regular season, and then lost to Oklahoma in the Orange Bowl and would lose the national championship. So it is rare, and I think that is something we're going to see. I'm on a different spectrum. I'm looking forward to the playoffs. Um, I don't think there'll be that much of a drop off in what we've seen in the regular season. Granted, there will be a drop off, and when you did have the greatest regular season in all of sports, that does suck a little bit. But I think there's some things that's going to add to it now. The focus will be on winning the conference first. You're going to need to win your conference first. It means something now, and it means a whole lot more to the teams. And we will see a team that's going into their conference championship outside of winning that game have absolutely no hope of making the playoffs. So.
Really, I think the opposite. I think you're going to see teams care less because, I mean, if you play for Ohio State, you have to know that if you lose one game, you still make the playoff every year.
Okay, so what you're saying though is this scenario is maybe either the last game of this prior to the championship game or the championship game itself, Ohio going into one of those games undefeated and saying, hey, you know what? We could get a rest here and make the playoffs anyway. Let's just not play our best players.
I'm not even going that far, although that is possible depending on the circumstances. But it's more so the attitude of a locker room of players. When you play professional sport, not professional, but team sports, so you're just not up. You're just not as motivated for certain opponents. And if you know you're already like, okay, let's say Ohio State's already played all their toughest opponents. I think Michigan's the last game on their schedule, if I remember correctly. Um, that they
Yeah, I
really play
don't
each
ever
other.
see a scenario
But
where
but
Ohio
but
State doesn't play to win against Michigan or vice versa.
no, I'm not. Yeah, yeah, I don't see that either. But I could see them versus like Minnesota, just not having their A game. Basically, I guess what I'm saying is I see the what's the good phrase for it? I forget it now, but the taking like weeks off. I see that phenomenon increasing. I see the upsets. There we go. I see upsets increasing. It's significantly because you're going to have a team like Penn State who's favored by three touchdowns versus a upstart Rutgers team or something, and they just don't really show up that week, and they just beat Michigan the week before or something,
Well,
and
you've always
but
been a
they know they
believer.
can lose. But they know they can lose Uh,
But see, like how different? That's not any different than your belief in trap games. So
of course, there are trap games.
of course,
If
you
you,
see, you believe in trap games, but you're saying though is that now there's going to be more trap games.
I mean, I wouldn't call a trap game the same as a letdown game. I wouldn't call those the same thing. I would say there's going to be more letdown games. A trap game is like, okay, it's your third road game in 4 weeks, and you're playing on across the country, you know, and the other
I
team's
don't.
got a bye week. That's like a trap game. Or
The
you're,
only thing that I think that is going to be the result of this new system is there's not going to be the added pressure of remaining undefeated every week. I
yes,
mean, there was
absolutely not.
something
Yeah,
to that. That I think that's what we saw, though. I think I think that that's when we saw the most upsets is because there was so much pressure on to remain undefeated. Because if you don't, you might not get in. Particularly with the BCS system. In the BCS system, when it was just two, you better stay undefeated. And then, hell, even in the playoffs, we just seen an undefeated Florida State team not make the playoffs.
yeah. I think which proves that well, that's a whole other conversation. But yeah, I would have liked it if it went to 6 and top two got a bye. I thought that would have been perfect. I thought that for years though. They decided
Well,
to go the other
we
end of
had
the spectrum.
spoke about that previously, and
Yeah,
I'm going to stand on this, and I've always said it. If you go back through history, you go back to the BCS era, there's only a handful of times,
oh yeah,
in
yeah.
all actuality, where
Was
there
top
was
two.
more than 2 to 3 teams. I
Yeah,
mean, everyone's going to throw out that, oh, what about 2007? Or what about the year when Auburn went
that's
undefeated?
it.
Okay.
Those are it. Those are basically it. Yeah, yeah. I mean, you're right. It's Phil still always brings that up every year in the first 20 pages. Um, yeah, there's only been like four times max, but really probably just 2 or 3 times that you really had like a legit argument. Like, hey, man, last year would have been one. Last year would have been one for
Yeah, last year was
sure.
sure.
Yeah.
But I think we're
So
moving
last
towards
year was
that because,
special. Last year was
yeah.
special.
I think that we're moving towards a more, I don't want to say mediocrity because I don't think the teams are going to be mediocre in any form or fashion. But what I'm saying is we're going to see a lot more diversity in talent wise. Where used to, you could be like, okay, well, Oregon's going to play Alabama. The talent edge is going to definitely be with Alabama. I think the
Yeah.
talent is becoming so spread throughout the country because of NIL and it flips in an instant. The instant it is the dumbest way to do a free agency because that's what it is. It's a
Free
free
agency.
agency that I've ever seen. No other
Yeah.
league allows their players to jump into free agency while they're still in the postseason. You know what I mean? You can't just
Yeah.
start jumping teams while we're in the postseason and you're playing for my team. You know what I
Hopefully,
mean?
hopefully that doesn't become a thing this year, but it could.
You know, and so I think that's one thing that's going to change. But I am again, I'm definitely looking forward to the playoff and seeing where college football heads from here. And I think that again, I don't. I think we can start to see different teams win national championships
No,
because of
no,
NIL. I'm telling you.
no, no, no. Listen, that's the other thing with this. I guess that's the other. That's the other. What how they say, canary in the coal mine, is that the more games you play, the more it favors the top programs. Let me say it this way: the more it favors the teams with the most depth, and the teams with the most depth are typically your top programs, three deeps, got guys who could play for anybody, Ohio State, Georgia, schools like that. So by the time you get to week 17 or game 16, game 17, the depth matters that much more each week. You factor in injuries. I mean, it's just the teams that you need to have an NFL team to play that many games. Well, who's got the closest NFL team in college football? It's the teams with the most, the top recruits, the top talent. So I'll be shocked. I mean, we'll see some cool matchups for sure. That's one thing we're gonna get. We're gonna get like some teams popping in that we weren't expecting, but I'll be shocked if a team who's outside of that, that top 12 range. I guess Michigan technically did it last year. They were like ranked roster rank was like 14th, but I wouldn't count that. Michigan broke the record for combine invites. you know, and they were a super senior laden NFL heavy team. And they won a national championship. That's pretty much who's just going to keep winning the national championship.
I think they were a top 10 roster average for the 3 years prior to winning the national championship. I think I looked that up.
Oh, so yeah, maybe that like fifth year was like whack. And that's why it drug it down to 14. Yeah, they were like 14 last year, I thought I saw. Yeah, like 14. Um,
If Washington would have won, they'd have been an outlier because like they
oh,
finished
yeah, huge outlier. Yeah.
60. They should because they shouldn't even made it because like me and you did our little thing in private and we picked everything and according to that like they were the least talented roster, so they shouldn't have made it. But of course, there's always going to be an outlier.
Of the four, yeah, they were the least talented for sure. But Texas, hey, they beat Texas for the second straight year. So there we go. Speaking of Texas, let's do our first two out. Who are your first two schools you got missing the postseason?
Well, this is going to be a bit telling. I'm going to take it number 13 Notre Dame. I do know that a lot of people in the media is hyping Notre Dame up a little bit. They're not a name you're hearing as a actual national championship contender, but an actual playoff contender. I just don't buy it. I think the quarterback they brought in from Duke is the actual downgrade from Sam Hartman, who wasn't that good to begin with. And they got some. I think they might just lose straight up week one versus Texas A&M. They got to play a Miami team who I think is going to beat them. They got to play a Florida State team who I think will beat them. I don't buy into Notre Dame, even though the media does, but the media does every year. But I do think they'll be the first team out. The second team out is another team that is being extremely overrated in the media, by my opinion, all over the board. I think they're
Hold,
extremely
hold up,
overrated
brother.
at quarterback, and that's
Hold
going to
up,
be the
brother.
Texas Longhorns.
Hold
Yeah,
up. They don't play Miami, Notre Dame.
Notre
They play
Dame.
Miami of Ohio.
Ah, that's right. Okay,
Yeah,
okay.
they're only games of note on this schedule that like that I see are if you count at road game at USC this year, and then Florida State at home with a bye, and then A&M to start the season.
Oh no, see,
And
I think they're gonna lose to A&M. I had them losing or versus Florida State. I think they lose to USC. I'll give them the Miami Ohio game. So I had them losing 4 games, but I still think they lose 3 games, and I don't think they get into the playoffs.
okay, okay.
You know what I mean? So they're a 3-team loser to me. Um, Texas is number 14 on my list. Again, their team I think is being extremely overrated in the media. I think their quarterback is overrated. I've people saying this guy's QB1. I don't see it. It's not that I hate Texas because I do, but it's not. That's not the reason I'm saying this. I'm saying this because it's true. Like they lost their best wide receivers. I don't trust their quarterback with these new guys because he like again he only had like one good year. I don't buy into Texas. The schedule on paper it gets harder. That's as much as I'm going to say about that. Even though my team's down in the SEC, I still have my feelings about the overhyping that conference receives. Still to this day, it's going to continue. It's going to get even worse. Um, I've learned to live with it. It is what it is. Texas, don't buy into them. I don't think they make the playoffs. So them and Notre Dame are my first 2 teams out.
Yeah, I actually have Texas as my first team out. Also, this year, just based on roster rank, the 5 year average, they're I mean they're a mega team based on it. They're top 10, but they got 7 losable games from the research I've done over the years. We've done over the years. 7 losable games in the Big 12. They would never play more than 3 at most. So that is a factor. With that said, how much is it going to matter this year in this SEC with these rosters? I mean, they get Florida at home with a bye, on the road to Arkansas. Sure, but Arkansas is completely terrible right now. Kentucky at home. Kentucky has an elite D line. Whenever you got an elite D line, it's like a boxing match. Like weird stuff happens when people get hit. So you never know, but they are at home. It's just not as easy as of a schedule as it was last year. It's just not. But and the out of conference schedule is a joke. I mean, they got 3 gimmies. They get Michigan early, but the reason why I don't think they're making it is between the Red River rivalry, which they can lose anytime, any year. Lost it last year. Or sorry, wait, they lost last year, right? Yeah,
Yeah, they lost the Red River.
yeah, they lost last year. Yeah, yeah. Then they get Georgia the next week. That's a rough back to back. And then, but I think by the time they play A&M at the end of the year, I think they're looking at like a 10-2 season, 10-2 season. You know, they do have an extremely strong team. They are loaded in the back seven. They got a ton of NFL talent on defense this year. They brought a lot of guys back, and their skill positions. Even though I don't like their quarterback that much, he's still the top 20 quarterback in college football. And the backup might be even better. But the talent of the guys who are replacing the skills guys who all went to the NFL, it's a very good roster. They've recruited well. They're a strong roster. So I got them missing though, 10-2. Next school I got missing out. Next one is actually also in the SEC. And a lot of this has to do with SEC bias and how these schools are going, or how these decision makers are going to do things. But they always prop the SEC schools, give them the rankings early in the year. So look, we beat a ranked team. You know how it goes. These tricks that they pull. A&M, I think they do have a chance to beat Notre Dame week 1. I don't know if they will, but they do have a good chance. But it's a first-year head coach. But this roster, I mean, I just feel like he's gonna finally tap in and do what Dumbo Fisher couldn't do and get some real results out of that talent. That is a talented roster, recruiting wise, NFL talent wise, has been for years. I think they have a good chance to have like a 9-10 win season, and they're hanging around in that 12 to 16 ranked place because they're an SEC school and whatnot. So A&M was my second team out on that. And what I like about A&M this year, most of all, is they've just got a lot of depth. They don't have a lot of holes as far as like the talent experience matrix goes. And their head coach is a defensive wizard. His track record is proven. And I mean, I will go to the bank that they will have a very good defense this year. So. But I got them missing.
Well, for me, I circled that at Michigan game. I think they lose that. I think they lose the Red River Shootout. I think they lose to Georgia. And there's no way, given the history, Texas has a history of losing to Arkansas, and they have a history of losing to A&M. Right? They lost the very last game between A&M and Texas. They lost, right, on a field goal. So I think they're going to lose one of those games. I got them losing 3 games and missing the playoffs, like I said.
I mean, based on roster rank, Arkansas is a losable game. I'm not expecting it, but based on roster rank, like when I look at the roster rank, I think of literally like, okay, this guy's got 80-inch reach. This guy's got 80-inch reach. This guy's 6'5", 220. This guy's 6'5", 220. I think of like people physically matching up, and Arkansas can physically match up to 80 percentile at least with Texas. So yeah, I mean it can happen. It'd be crazy if it does. Be a good week to make some money on the money line. That's for sure. Okay, which school did you have as your group of 5 or whatever we're gonna call it now? Non money hungry conference.
Okay.
Auto bid team. Which team did you?
Let me start with that. I think this is no disrespect to the group of 5 schools. I enjoy watching them. They're some of my favorite games to watch because the talent level is so close. I'm going to say this. I'm going to try to put it in this perspective. But I believe that the worst Power 4 team is probably closer the worst Power Five or Power Four conference, which I don't know. We pick the Big 12 or the
It's
ACC.
the Big 12.
Right? No, I think it would be the ACC. The Big 12 had the most 9-win
It's
seasons last year.
debatable. It's debatable.
Yeah.
Okay.
So but they're a lot closer to the SEC is right than the best group of five or group of eight, whatever they are that now is the best conference is to the Big 12 or the ACC, whichever one you have
Yeah,
is
that's
worse.
true. That's
You
very true.
understand?
Yeah.
So
Very
I enjoy watching them, but I think it's utterly ludicrous that we give an automatic bid to any of these teams because all they are going to be for the most part is fodder because they're never going to be anything more than that 10 to 12 ranked. And in that case, they're always going to be on the road. They're always going to have to go on the road and play one of these teams, and they're going to get whooped.
Yeah.
Could you imagine Liberty versus
Oregon?
Ole Miss last year or Oregon? But Ole Miss, Lane
Yeah.
Kiffin could have picked the score. It would have been up and down. He would have been brutal to them, and that's what we're going to see, and that's what's going to happen to them. We've seen it in the college basketball level. How many years did it take for a 16 seed to finally beat a 1 seed? Even though it's happened
Well, hold
now
on.
a
Hold
couple
on.
times after.
That's a little bit different. We get upsets. We get upsets from conferences who no one even knew existed in the March Madness every year. We get an upset. They might not be the 16 seed, but I
That's
mean,
it. You
like
know what I'm
the
saying?
14 or the 13, and
That,
it's
but,
like,
well, that's my analogy though, because the 12 seed Liberty would be nothing more than the 16 seed in the tournament. You get what I'm
I,
saying? That they're the worst seed. You're like it's like
yeah,
I don't what affirmative action kind of like. Well, you're here because you're a group of five. We want to give you a chance to prove yourself.
it's college football affirmative action, right?
You know what I
Yeah,
mean?
it's
Like
I think Liberty last year, like how they performed versus an Oregon team who, to be fair, Oregon did care. The locker room did care about that game. There are times where, I know you don't like to hear this, people don't really care about the game. Hell, actually, it's manifested itself because guys don't even show up for the game. They
they
stop
don't
showing
play
up.
games
They don't
now.
even play the
So
games. Yeah, so they clearly didn't care. But
no, my
Oregon
problem
blew them
throughout the
out.
year. My problem throughout the years with that saying was it was always the excuse for when the
For
SEC
SEC
didn't win.
team. Yeah, yeah,
When they didn't win, it was I didn't want to be there.
yeah.
Well,
Alabama
well,
never
how
wanted to be
come?
there.
Right. Every time, whenever they lost, they didn't want to be there. But when they won, it was just because they were they're so much better. But if they
Yeah.
lost, oh, they didn't want to be there. So
Okay, so who you got? Who you got for who's your pick for the group of
Liberty, I
five?
am taking Liberty. I think Liberty is the best team in the group of five or group of eight, whatever it is this year. I do think they are the best team. I do think they will be challenged. Tulane is very good. Um, they travel to Oklahoma this year. We'll see how good Tulane really is. If
We
somehow Tulane could come out of there with a win, out of OU with a win, and then go throughout the rest of the year undefeated, they're definitely getting in the playoffs. So, but I
yeah.
don't think they will. I don't think they will. I do like Liberty. I think their schedule is favorable for them to make a run, but I think they'll make the playoffs, and I think they'll be humiliated.
Okay, yeah. I don't even think Liberty's the best team in the group of five at all. I think they might even be as low as the seventh best team. I thought even last year there were probably teams who might have been better. Last year was a good year for group of five teams too. There were a lot of ranked teams that was last few weeks of the regular season. But I also have Liberty because their schedule's a joke, and they brought back most of their key players. They did lose their all conference wide receiver. I think he went to LSU. That hurts, but with that schedule, their schedule, I think Phil still has it ranked the easiest schedule in America, back to back years. So it's really just like one game on their schedule. And I think it's the Tulane one, and then that's it. Like they don't have anything else to do the whole year, they're gonna have to go undefeated again. I don't think the one loss will do it because there'll probably be someone else hanging around. But yeah, I don't want to spend too much time on that. They'll show up. They'll be the 12 seed. They'll play the 5th seed, who will most likely, well, whoever the 5th seed is going to destroy them. So yeah, moving on. Okay. Um, So now we can get to the real 11 teams. How do we want to do this? I mean, we could do the. I mean, I'm just willing. We can just go like backwards up to like the top to the
All
conference
right.
champs, I guess. Who do you got like going backwards, like from 11 through
11.
it?
I'm
Well, it
taking
doesn't matter
Missouri.
what number they are, but just
Okay.
like the teams that those at large bids, I guess.
I'm taking Missouri at 11. The reason I like the Tigers, their schedule is a bit, rough for them to get up into that upper echelon of the top four. I don't think they'll make the SEC championship. It feels like a year that to me, I, again, I'm familiar with some of these teams. This is old territory for me, dealing with Missouri, dealing with Texas A&M. Missouri is one of those teams for me. They've all remember back in the day when they were good in the Big 12. It was always, oh, it's Missouri's time, it's Missouri's time, and then like everybody kind of downplayed OU, and then OU smashed them, right? They would just
Right.
destroy their dreams, just like they would do Oklahoma State. They would just destroy Missouri's dreams, and it feels like that for me this year. Everybody's out in Oklahoma, and Missouri's getting a lot of love. I do think they'll make the playoffs, but I think that they're going to skate in by the skin of their teeth at number 11.
So whenever we have a match, I'm gonna go right after you, and we got a match. I got Missouri making it too. I put their ceiling this year at 12-0. I think their floor is 9-3. I think their schedule is really really convenient. I mean, of course, they got losable games on there, of course, but well, first and foremost, for me, for my money, I call this the number one skills group, skill position group in the country, QB through tight end. This is my number one group I picked, and that's saying something because there's some good ones. Um, over Ole Miss, I think their QB has a chance to play on Sundays. It gets better every year. That wide receiver core is loaded. The tight end is even good. The running backs they brought in can play. And then the O line is also a really, really quality O line. But I think their defense has a chance to be better than people think too. They were like right on the cusp of making like my next tier up, all through the defense. But yeah, it's mainly that schedule. They just got some favorable matchups, with the like bye weeks and when they play people, and then avoiding some of the bigger, more threatening teams in the SEC. So I think 12-0 is really, really on the table. Of course, I would never pick that for them or really anybody, but yeah, them going 11-1, whether they make the SEC championship game or not, it seems like it's a real possibility. So yeah, I got them in for sure.
Okay. At number 10, I like another SEC team, the LSU Tigers. Um, I think that there will be some major drop off at quarterback. I do not believe, nor can they be, um, as bad as they were last year on defense. Um, that for me. That was why Daniels won the Heisman. When I would watch, and that was early on in the season. I recognized without this kid, these dudes have absolutely no hope because this defense is horrendous. It was easily for me. I've said it over and over. It was one of the worst defenses I've ever seen. But they had one of the best players in a long time. He won the Heisman because of it, because of his play and how spectacular he. Without him, they were a 7-win team. But I think they're going to be improved this year. Their backup it isn't as good. You seen what he could do in the bowl game. I think he's going to get it done enough, and I think Kelly will find some answers, and I think they'll get in the playoffs.
Blake Baker, who they brought in, he did a great job in Missouri. But they were one of the worst defenses in the country, and that was probably maybe the worst LSU defense we've ever seen. So, yeah, they definitely held them back. I do expect some improvements too. They have a strong roster. I didn't have them making the playoff, but yeah, the defense should be greatly improved. Who you got next?
At number 9, I have the Miami Hurricanes. However, I think I need to revise that because I believe that the four conference championship champions are ranked. 1 through 4. Is that
They
right?
are. They are. They auto bid, which they should also get rid of. I mean, there's no point in doing it that way. It just you don't need to do it. It's not like the conference champ from any of those four conferences is ever going to be like 6-6. It's not going to happen. It's just like they don't need to do any of that stuff. Yeah, but anyways,
All right.
um,
Let me read this out. Well, then at number 9, I'm going to go with the Michigan Wolverines. I think that the defending national champions will make the playoffs. I do not think that they'll be as difficult to beat this year as they were last year. Now, again, last year there was really only 2 games where they really had a potential to lose that game, and that was they should have
yeah.
lost to Maryland. If you watch the game, Maryland's quarterback beat them. They had Ohio State a couple times in that game, and their quarterback threw just horrendous interceptions. And I just couldn't understand why Tua's little brother was playing as poorly as he was in that game. Um, I guess I got to give the credit to Michigan's defense, but he had them on the ropes, and not to quote, Coach Green, we let him off the hook.
Yeah.
Um, and then the Ohio State game, even though I felt like Michigan never was always in control of that game, it was a close game, and Ohio State just didn't make enough plays to win the game. It wasn't a blowout. People act like they're just dominating, Ohio
Okay, but
State.
but what about Michigan this year? I don't understand how anyone's got them in the playoff. Help me understand how they're making the playoff this year. I,
Well, you
I, I
got they bring back a lot of key players from that national championship team. I
like
mean, J.J.
who?
McCarthy. You think, well, one, the running back. He's maybe the best running back in the country.
Donovan Edwards, who couldn't get on
Yes,
the field. Okay,
from
listen.
the injury, right?
I
He
mean,
was
listen.
injured.
That guy. I mean, listen. I mean, it's wild to call him maybe the best running back in the country, but I mean, there's a lot of good running backs. Whatever. But I mean, they lost so much on the other than the D line where they brought some guys back. I mean, they lost every other key player that I can think of. Edwards was not a key player last year. Obviously, he wasn't playing much. Right, he was injured. And I just don't see how, with a new staff, losing all that experience. I mean, their schedule, yeah,
No,
they're gonna
I
sleepwalk to 9 wins, but
yeah, no, that I had Missouri's running back. I don't know. My notes were where I noticed that I hadn't ranked it according to the uh, conference champions. My notes were running together there. So yeah, no. Um, Blake Corum went on to the NFL. So
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Edwards is like he had the 2 long touchdown runs in the national championship game. They were kind of sputtering until he got them going in that game
Yeah,
with
yeah,
those
they
two
were
long
the way
runs.
they play offense. The way they play offense exposes them to upsets. That's just the nature of that kind of offense, where you're like, hey, we're just gonna run the ball, go for really short gains. We don't
But
have explosive playmakers. And last year it
look at
worked.
Michigan's schedule. I favor them over Texas. I like them over USC to get that game at home. I like Washington's not going to be even close to that. I don't see a losable game until Oregon, and even after that, I don't. The only 2 games I could see on their schedule they potentially lose is Oregon and Ohio State and Texas.
I would say all three of those are guaranteed losses.
So
The
you're taking
Texas
Texas.
one, if they played them later in the year and like things come together for them. But I mean, we don't know if their QB is going to be able to play. And last time I remember, Michigan's QBs haven't been good for a very long time. I know McCarthy just got drafted, but that dude was a super overrated prospect. He literally threw 4 passes, past 10 yards versus the top 6 teams they played last year. Like they just game manager QBs, and
But
I
they
don't
didn't
see
ask
how.
them.
I don't ask. Well, yeah, they didn't ask them because that's not what they do, and they're not. And the QBs really can't do it. Also, they can't do it. I mean, come on. I've never heard of this before until this past year with JJ McCarthy. Guys can do things they've never been asked to do, and I've never heard that. But anyways, the point is that their QBs are always trash. Like they're never difference makers. They don't make a difference, and I don't see how that's going to change. It could, I guess, but the guy they got coming in, starting whoever wins the job, they got a brand new QB playing Texas's defense that early in the year. That's why it's hard for me to see them winning. But if they played them later, then that'd be different because they are at home, the big house. But it's just hard for me to see them winning week 3, week 2 versus a very experienced Texas team compared to them.
Okay.
But a lot of people like Michigan to just walk in and repeat their success. And the coach is gone, coaching staff got gutted. They like Michigan. The Big Ten just got harder too, though, adding Oregon. So we'll see. If Sharon Moore can pull that off, man, good for him because that's a hell of a first year on the job. Then.
Agree. Who was your? You didn't say who you had at the.
I'll let you keep running down, and because I know we got a bunch of teams who probably we match up.
I got a lot of SEC teams in this year. I think
Yeah.
the SEC is going to get a lot of teams. So I got Tennessee coming in at number 8. I think they potentially have a chance to win the SEC. They got a big game early in the season at Norman, Oklahoma. I think that'll set, we'll be able to set a decent barometer for both those teams of what we can expect from them this year. I think they got the talent to challenge for the SEC title. I just look at the schedule; it's a little difficult, and I just don't think anybody is in a place to beat who I think is going to win the SEC at this point. So I do think Tennessee does have a playoff team, and I got them making it.
I actually agree about Tennessee's ceiling. I could see them going as high as 11-1. I do got them losing that OU game though. I noticed years ago that first time starting QBs, when you control for a couple basic factors like if they're playing for Georgia or Nick Saban's Alabama, they tend to lose that first true road game. And Tennessee's first, I believe their first true road game of the year. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I'm gonna find their schedule. I think it's at OU. Yes, it is. So I got them losing that game for sure. But yeah, looking at the rest of their schedule, and then the Georgia game. But I guess if they pull off the upset against Oklahoma, then yeah, playoff is on the table for sure. Because that schedule is not. They got a really favorable SEC schedule. So.
And then staying in the SEC at number 7, I have a surprise team, a team that everybody has kind of been down on. I don't understand it. I don't see how you could be super high on one team. And in this instance, we're talking about the Oklahoma Sooners. I got them at 7. I think they're going to make the playoffs. They're going to be a huge surprise this year. I think they have the potential to have the best defense in the SEC. They might already have the best back 5.
Were you talking about Oklahoma?
Yeah.
You think
they have the potential to have the best defense.
Best defense in the SEC. You think that's possible?
Because I think they got the best back 5.
Right, but so I just want to throw this out here.
And they brought in the kid from TCU is going to be a huge difference maker. I think for the first time in the 3 years that he's been there, Britt Venables has the depth at defensive line to run what he wants to run.
So I just want to throw this out there. Last year in 9 Big 12 games, OU gave up 171 rush yards per game. The year before that was more of the same. But hey, I mean, if Venables thinks he has the depth this year, then I guess that's possible. I will say this about OU. I have my own metric I made. I don't have them making the playoff, but I have my own metric I made where it's basically it fades freshmen and just goes off your talent and experience based off of the rest of the roster. And OU second in the nation in that metric. Like they had the second highest score right there with Georgia. They're second to Georgia.
On
So
paper, like here's the Oklahoma, even under Brent Venables, if you go back in under his three classes, only Alabama, Georgia, and LSU has out recruited OU. And then if you go back before that, throughout the since the Bob Stoops has been there, and you go look, Oklahoma is a recruiting monster. They're
yeah,
not just going to all of a sudden, oh, well, now we're in the SEC, we're going to stop recruiting. They're gonna stop putting together one of the best rosters in the country. It's just going to actually now they can go in and say, well, we're in the SEC too.
yeah.
You
I
know,
just I just think their
so
schedule's very difficult. And
this season it
obviously
is. I'm not going to lie, but
it's very
I
difficult.
we get some of the key games at home. We already talked about how we play Tennessee at home. I don't believe in Auburn. I don't think they're going to be that improved this year. They were bad last year just because they had one good game against Alabama. The week after they got whooped, they got took to the woodshed by
Going to
New
Missouri,
Mexico. You know what I mean?
Missouri, Mississippi, and LSU. If OU was at home versus those three teams, I would say, hey, yeah, they should be favored, but they play all three on the road. So I guess it's just going to come down to what they're able to pull off in those three road games. And I'm not as high on LSU as you are this year, but still, obviously, they're going to be a tough out. Um, but yeah, if they could, it's just those three road games. I think OU should smack Bama with a bye week.
Yeah, I think yo,
I think
you
Bama's gonna get
know,
smacked a few times this year, actually.
I do too.
But
You notice,
yeah,
notice I don't have Alabama in my playoffs, and I didn't have them in my first two out because
me
I
either.
look at their schedule. I think they're in for an awakening this year. They think they
Yeah,
got it. This is no knock against DeBoer. I think
yeah.
he's a good coach, but you're coming off of the greatest uh, coach in my lifetime. I got to see Tom Osborne coach, right? I still think Nick Saban's the greatest coach in my lifetime, and you're going to get some fall off there. And
Well, they lost
just
like
like
31 transfers. I mean, they
exactly,
lost so much. They lost to NFL and they lost to the portal. It's
into the
just,
portal.
it's just not this like that's the other thing that's happened this year. That's why I made that metric on my own to try to get a better idea because of the transfer, the nature of the free agency. I got to start calling it what it is, free agency. Because of the nature of free agency now, these schools are the roster rank is not accurate the way I mean it's still close, but I'd say it's like you're talking about a variance of up to like 20%. Like, oh, this is schools ranked like 15th, and but they lost so many of these kids who were like top freshman recruits and helped them get up there. They transferred out after a year because they didn't get the job or they got paid to go somewhere else or whatever it is. So yeah, OU is as experienced and talented as anyone in the country. It would not surprise me. They can win every game on their schedule. It would not surprise me. They're basically my sleeper team of the season. Like it will not surprise me if they like I might go put
And look,
$5 on them to win
here's
national
the truth.
championship. If their QB, their QB's got to be
OU
real
is
though.
capable. OU is capable of losing 5 games and going 7-5,
Yeah,
and they have the talent to go undefeated and win the national championship. It's just there. They have Jackson Arnold. They have at wide receiver. Dion Burks is going to be a stud at OU. He is going to be the next really good slot wide receiver, right along with in the Ryan Broyles mold, in the Kenny Stills mold,
right.
and you know what I'm saying. Sterling Shepard. He's going to play that role, and he's going to be a stud. And we got two dudes that can burn on the outside.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah, I like their skill positions a lot. Only question mark there is Arnold, but he seems like he's up for the task. For the sake of time, let's speed up a little bit.
all right, so at
Um,
number 6, I
so
got
you got
Oregon.
okay, Oregon.
I
Okay,
got the Oregon Ducks at number 6. At number 5, I got another SEC team, Ole Miss. This is my sleeper team to win it all. I think they're a lot for the playoffs, but I think that Ole Miss has the talent to beat everybody they play this year. What they did in the portal was insane. Lane Kiffin has a very, very good squad. And now we're start with our conference champions.
hold on, real quick. Hold on, real quick. I'll touch on Oregon, and Ole Miss, real quick. Oregon, I they were one of four teams who I put a ceiling of well, 5 teams. I put a ceiling of 12-0. Yeah, mega senior heavy team, super senior heavy, mega experienced, as experienced as anyone. The only flaw I found, honestly, dissecting their roster is the DB size is kind of small actually, and the D line has no like clear cut NFL guys, but they got plenty of very highly touted high recruits. The skills position group, this might be the best wide receiver, arguably the best wide receiver core in the country, and arguably the best QB in the country. Quiet as kept. I know you don't like that, maybe, but like this guy's his resume, compare it with anyone you want. I mean, so yeah, Oregon's definitely a heavy national championship contender. I actually think they're going to win the Big Ten. Well, sorry, I think they're going to win the Big Ten regular season, and then we'll see what happens in the game. I think them and Ohio State have a rematch. And then Ole Miss, yeah, I'm right there with you. Ole Miss was another one that 11-1. 11-1 seems very, very plausible. They handle business versus OU. They handle business in the games they're favored. Um, don't have any upsets. Yeah, 11-1 is very possible. This is a loaded, stupid loaded roster. Definitely could make some noise. I just something about them though. I don't know if they'll win a national championship though, but something about trusting Lane Kiffin to do something great just doesn't work for me. But yeah.
Well, I really like what they did in the portal. I believe they brought in 4 of the top 15 players in the portal.
Yeah.
They stole some dudes. They stole the number one 2020 recruit. And I mean, it was in 2022. I'm sorry, the number one 2020 recruit in the country from Texas A&M, defensive tackle. The dude was a beast. So I expect big things from Ole Miss. So now getting into this, the top 4. I want to say this. 2 of my teams in my top 4, I don't think are 2 of the top 4 teams in the country. I think because of the way that the system's going to work, where they're a Power 4 team, they're going to automatically get one of these top 4 bids. I'm going to start with the lowest one, and that's Kansas. That's my shock team of the year. I believe Kansas will win the Big 12. I think they're going to beat Oklahoma State in the Big 12 championship. Speaking of the Big 12, real fast, I do not buy into Colorado. A lot of people are going to pick them to win the Big 12. I've seen that.
Ooh.
Joe Klatt picked Colorado to win the Big 12. I don't think that's even going to come close to happening. I think they're going to struggle to win 7 games. But I think 7 games is a big improvement for Colorado, and I don't want to see people get down on them for not making the playoffs when I don't think this is a team capable of making the playoffs.
I'll say one thing about Colorado real quick. That metric I mentioned about fading freshmen and the experience and the talent, Colorado ranked highest in the Big 12 in that, which surprised me. Higher than Utah. That is the only thing I can say about them. Dion's got to be able to coach though, because it's like the whole roster's transfers. So we'll see how great a coach he is or isn't.
That's what I don't trust. I don't trust that offensive line is going to gel with each other enough to play well enough as a unit, not individually. I believe maybe they got some really good individual talent in Jordan Seaton, the 5-star recruit they just brought in, but I don't know how they'll play as a unit. I got to see how they play. All right.
Yeah. Real quick, I got since you gave your Big 12 champ, I actually went with Iowa State. I think Iowa State is staring. If they can pull the upset versus Iowa, they're staring 11-1 in the face. I think I really like their young QB and their young running back and their skills group. The O-line brought everyone back. And I think coaching is going to matter a lot in the Big 12 this year, and they got a lot of good coaches. But Campbell, he's done an amazing job at Iowa State, and that was my. I guess it's more of a sleeper pick, but yeah, I got Iowa State winning it.
I like Kansas because I think Kansas has the most dynamic player in the Big 12. I think that they also have done a very good job about surrounding him with weapons. They may have the best backfield unit in the Big 12. That's saying a lot when you consider that Oklahoma State has Ollie Gordon, but I like Neal and I like the other guys that they have around him. Junior. I think they're gonna. I think Kansas is going to shock a lot of people this year. So then that's my fourth team. At number three, I got the Miami Hurricanes winning the ACC over the Florida State Seminoles. I think Cam Ward gives Miami that the quarterback they've been desperately looking for to get them over the hump to make them relevant again. At least while he's there, I think Cam Ward will achieve that. So I have them at three. At two, I have the Ohio State Buckeyes, who I believe have the best roster on paper in the country. Um, Absolutely a monster squad. I think they finally beat Michigan this year, and that puts them at two. At number one is the Georgia Bulldogs, who I believe, had they beat Alabama last year, very well could have been the national champions last year. I don't know if anyone in the playoffs would have been able to beat them. And that that sounds funny, even though Alabama beat them in the SEC
Sounds
championship.
really funny coming from you, Mister.
I still think I think if they could have got in, they would have won. I don't. I just
Right. No, that's
that.
true. They could have the talent. They can win any week. They can win any week versus anyone. So
So
yeah.
that's my playoff teams. I'm going to say that
Okay.
I actually have a shocker though. I have Ole Miss upsetting Ohio State in the national championship.
Yeah. Listen, that's wish casting, but okay. Listen, you should put some money on Ole Miss to win the championship because you're going to get good odds right now. You're probably getting at least you got to be getting at least 15-1.
I got a
Even
feeling.
though they're a double digit win team, everyone thinks they're going to win 10 games at
I've been
least.
having a feeling with this. I think Jackson Dart has a very good chance to win the Heisman. I've had having a feeling about Ole Miss ever since the offseason when I started watching what they were doing in the portal, watching who they were recruiting, and
Yeah.
they've done an excellent job of working that portal and in the recruiting this year to fill what they need. And I think that Lane Kiffin's got something brewing.
Okay. Okay. Ole Miss. I got Ole Miss in the playoff too. We went over that. I'm gonna go through my other playoff teams and my ACC champ. Yeah, Georgia. Georgia. I got Georgia number one. I think they're gonna be favored in all 12 games. I don't think they had. Yeah, they were gonna be favored in all 12 games, and for good reason. They were number one in my talent experience metric. I think of a cool name for it. And they brought back their QB. And while I don't think he's very good, he is an NFL prospect and he is experienced and he's not bad. So that helps a lot with the turnover they got skill positions. But with that kind of level of recruiting, it's really not too much to worry about there. Ohio State, they're right there with Georgia. I think Georgia, Ohio State, and Oregon. If I wanted to, I could put them in their own tier. But yeah, Ohio State's absolutely loaded. They probably will have the best defense in the country. Definitely tier one. And Ryan Day's a Chip Kelly disciple. And I think Chip Kelly helps their offense a lot in the sense of I just think he's a better play caller than who they've had before. They're already running the same stuff. They've been running the same stuff. But it does help. I just think that what's his name isn't very good. And I don't know why people don't talk about this. At some point, you have to be a good passer, at least in some situations. And there's a lot of these QBs for some of these schools, not Miami. Miami has Cameron Ward, who's very good. But Will Howard is not that kind of player. And I just wonder, it wouldn't surprise me if Will Howard doesn't start all year. It just wouldn't surprise me. And if that happens, that means Ohio State's going to probably disappoint, would be my guess, if I had to guess. So that's what I say about those two teams. I don't have a national champion pick at the moment. I do have Notre Dame, though, in the playoff, mainly because their schedule. I think that, I do think there's a good chance they could lose at home to Florida State. For that to happen, I'm counting on Florida State having what's his name, the QB they got, DJU, not be a total fraud, and which to me that's exactly what he's been for his career. So as a former number one overall recruit or whatever. So while I really like Florida State's roster compared to Notre Dame, I really like what Norvell's doing. It's just hard for me to. Looking at their schedule, it's just hard for me. I do think Miami beats Florida State at home finally again. I feel like Miami's been losing. Miami's just been underachieving for so long. That's why it's hard for me to pick them higher. I don't have them in the playoff like you do. I want to. You know how I feel about Miami, but it's just years and years of disappointment. So Florida State gets Clemson at home. I got them in the playoff too. I actually got Florida State in the playoff, but I got them in the playoff off a conference championship loss to, drum roll please, the Virginia Tech Hokies and the best kept secret in college football. Uh, I'm gonna say his name right, Kayron Drones. I think
Quarterback.
Virginia Tech. Yeah, I think Virginia Tech is a smash roster this year. I think they check every box. They just gotta stay healthy. They're key players, but man, that wide receiver core is perfect. The running back is electric. The special teams are gonna be beamer ball all the way this year. It's just like Virginia Tech. I don't know how no one's talking about them. I think they're gonna win the ACC. By the hair on their the hair on their chin, but I think they're going to win the ACC and make the playoff also. And then the last team we didn't mention. Oh, my last team in there would be Iowa. Iowa's defense, experience, that coaching staff. It's a lot of the same stuff as last year. A bunch of bum Big Ten quarterbacks, a bum Big Ten
So
conference that's overrated.
you don't mind you don't mind the reports coming out that McNamara? Cade McNamara has been absolutely atrocious in camp.
Here's
The
I
other
believe
day
it.
he threw 8 interceptions against the defense.
Well, the offense they run is a joke. They refuse to change it, but the offense they run is a joke. The way guys are recruited out of high school these days, the kind of schemes they're running, very few players are can like run the kind of system Iowa still wants to play, and they just refuse to. They should just go the triple option. Honestly, it's a joke.
Hmm.
Iowa, like I don't know what that's the only thing with Ferenc. Like he just refuses to change his ways. But anyways, yeah, they it doesn't matter because you look at their schedule and you look at the QBs they play, just like last year in the Big Ten, the joke offensive conference that they are. It just doesn't matter. They can win 13-10, 16-7 every week or against almost everyone. And then Iowa State is as much as I like them this year, they're not a powerhouse recruiting team, and it's a rivalry game. Um, I think the only game Iowa had where I was like, oh yeah, that's like maybe a for sure loss. I'm trying to think who it was. No, they really didn't have one. It was just a matter of like, I think they play at Ohio State. Is it at Ohio State or at Penn State? It's one of those two.
Yes, they play at Ohio State.
Yeah, that was it.
I
That
think
was it.
Michigan State will be better. I mean, is it Dan Antonio back this year? I think they'll be
No,
better this year. Maryland, as a team that potentially every year they could be pretty good because they run a pretty nice offense in Maryland.
yeah, Maryland's that tricky team. The upset. That's the thing about Iowa. Schools like Iowa, they can be upset. They can be upset anytime because you only got to get 2 or 3 plays where the ball fumbles, bounces your way, and because they can't score, Iowa can't score. So I don't really like putting them in the playoff, but trying to pick a team that seem like their odds are best, I like to fade. I like to pump up the teams based on schedule if I know their opponents just aren't going to be that threatening. And Iowa's that whole schedule. I mean, there just aren't enough threatening opponents in the Big Ten. This not this year, anyways. A lot of those schools they added outside of Oregon, the other 3 Pac-12 schools are all in limbo a little bit. Even USC with I know USC. Some people are like, hey, they're under the radar, and it's true, but they just aren't recruiting like they used to, and they aren't like smashing the portal in any way that's like significant. So I mean, Lincoln Riley's did well at Oklahoma, but he inherited Bob Stoops' Oklahoma juggernaut. I mean, of course he did well. You have to be terrible to screw that up. And then he comes to USC, and he had other people's players also. He brought Caleb Williams, which is great. Caleb Williams is a special once in a while recruit though, very special quarterback prospect. And now Caleb's gone. And while I like the replacement, I don't think USC is going to be very strong this year. I think it's just going to be a lot of the same stuff, a bunch of bum quarterbacks in the Big Ten. And schools like Iowa, Ohio State, Michigan, can win 20-8. And then everyone on TV, Joe Klatt, will be like, "Oh wow, the defenses are so amazing in this conference." Like, okay, dude,
What I meant
what
by
happened?
that was
What happened when they played Tennessee with a first time
Mark.
playing QB? They got destroyed, 40-0
Yeah,
or whatever. So,
I think Mark D'Antonio did join their staff as an
oh, okay.
analyst this year, so he's.
Oh, I see.
I,
Okay.
I do think they'll be improved, and I think he'll definitely have
I
his fingerprints on that team
I
this
miss
past
Michigan
year.
State being relevant. Honestly,
Yeah.
it's a melancholy feeling. Like I miss. I remember when Michigan State was like. I remember Mike Hart dooming Michigan for like 6 straight seasons with that little brother comment, and like it meant something to Michigan State, and it didn't matter. The recruiting didn't matter. Michigan State was like, "Hey, look, we're beating your ass this year. Like that's what's going on. We're winning this game." Like,
Well,
that's great.
I think we've hit our hour.
Yeah, we got like 2 minutes. Yeah, so that's it. That's what we got. If I had to pick a national champion, I would say whoever between Georgia, Ohio State, if Oklahoma made it, if they're good enough to make it, I think they're good enough to win it. I do believe that. But basically, whoever has the highest grade of Ole Miss too. Ole Miss has a super. They cracked the 60
I would love for OU to make it.
score.
I really would. I just it's till
It'd be
I don't
cool. It'd be
understand
cool. It'd be cool to see Ole
like
Miss.
the
And
belief
just
that this Texas is the team that's gonna surprise everybody and they're back and all the hype. I just don't buy it. Like Texas.
Texas. Yeah, Texas. Texas had a good year last year. They did their thing, but the schools like that, there's a better chance than not that they'll come back down to earth a little bit. Be like a 9-ish win team. It's just what
Do a
happens. As we know. So
let's do a reaction show after the noon game tomorrow. I know it's gonna be played now and aired at noon, I believe.
a reaction show. Listen, let's save the reaction show for like a better game.
All right,
Georgia Tech.
next week.
Georgia Tech is going to be a fun team to watch, but their relevance level just doesn't do it for me. I do like the over in that game, though. I mean, I do like that.
Mhm.
I like
Well,
the odds of.
I gotta jump off here, man. I gotta get to sleep.
All right, bro. All right, man.
I,
We'll run this back soon. Thanks for tuning in. Peace.
Peace.